Hello, welcome. I'm back on the chair, and as this is going to imply in the future, this means I'm going to deliver yet another completely unbiased, official, and super accurate ranking of something in 40k. And I think more than this last one, this one is definitely going to be like the most official ranking of something in 40k. And today, instead of just going over Primarchs, we're going to be going over the factions. Specifically, I'm going to be talking about all the factions playable on tabletop. However, with one big exception, I am not going to be going over individual Space Marine like chapters and legions. So actually, first things first, I'll just set the tier list because we're going to be using the Art of War tier list. Also, I do want to preface. Now, as of course, there is extensive research that went into all of this. Of course, I'll give a little like a dash of my personal opinion. But specifically, this tier list is a ranking on overall quality of the faction. Just how cool they are, how maybe their rules kind of function, stuff like that. It's just a general ranking of quality. And of course, I don't think there's anyone that's going to be able to disagree with this opinion, because knowing last time, like no one had any problems with my ranking of Sanguinius on my Primarch tier list. Alrighty, first up is the Adeptus Mechanicus, which I'm going to toss into B tier. I think the Mechanicus are super fun. They got some great lore, their whole really goofy, a lot of their like tech stuff works really fun as it's kind of held together by like duct tape and prayers. Really fun. I think they have some of the more fun lore. However, I'm also not crazy into them. I think they're really fun as a like side thing. I'm not as really interested in stories and stuff that Mechanicus really center in. I guess one big exception though is the Mechanicus 40k game. That game is on like the very short list of like 5 good 40k games. If you haven't played it, play it. And then next up we got Chaos Knights, which I'm tossing into C tier. And I'm also gonna be honest, I think mechs are kinda lame. I don't like mechs. Never really cared for them, just big robots, whatever. Chaos Knights get a little bit of a bump because they're chaos. All right, Craftworld Eldar. Now, I don't think anyone here is going to have a problem with this ranking, and I think Craftworld are an immediate F tier. Fuck the elves, hate them. I hate their aesthetic, their characters, mostly bad, their models, old as shit, and they should stay that way. I don't like them. I don't like their rules, I don't like their stories, bad. Now, I really don't think anything's going to change my mind on the Eldar. I eventually plan on covering them, but a thing I've been putting off because I don't want to learn about the Eldar. I don't know a lot about them, and I can keep my just hatred towards them through a lack of knowledge. That's the way I like it. Though, I guess admittedly, some of it is because they were subject to some relatively poor writing in some elements. There are some authors that really have a weird hate boner for the Eldar and portray them as really stupid. Though also, I just don't like a lot of portrayal of elves in fiction because they play into these tropes where it's the misjudging of the context that Tolkien-esque elves had for acting the way they do, where they're like, oh, we've received a prophecy of what a horrible calamity will come. Oh, can you tell us what this calamity is? No, and we won't help. Fuck the elf, I don't like them. I'm not gonna rant too much on them, and I'm not gonna do that when I cover the elves, but whatever. Yeah, you get it. F tier. And now, Chaos Space Marines, I'm tossing into S+. They're great. I love the Traitor Legions. There's only like maybe 1 or 2 of all of them that I'm like less into, but overall, I think they're all pretty sick. I love the Black Legion, Fabius Biles, like Creations of Bile, the Thousand Sons. I can go on, but I'll do that in a separate video. However, I guess I'm gonna be fair. I'm ranking this based on the codexes. I'll just quickly rank Space Marines. I'll toss them in the S tier, which I'm also using the Raven Guard icon because I play them, so they're better. And yeah, they get S tier. I think Space Marines are pretty cool. They got some good stories. Similar reasons as Chaos Marines. Just it's that chaos difference that they're ranked a little higher. The Adeptus Custodes, my boys, immediate S tier. Obviously, completely unbiased. Obviously. But they also were like my first introduction to 40k through both the If the Emperor Had a Text-to-Speech Device like series, and also they were the first army I ever bought and played. As I remember playing my first 500-point army with 7 models. That was a real fun experience. But yeah, Also, who doesn't like just an army of like 10,000 golden demigods that are just perfect in every way? I love them. They're great. You should too. Also, rep to the Shadow Keepers. That's my army. All right, next up is Demons, a classic one. Now, Demons I'm putting into A tier. Obviously, I've stated I love Chaos. And Chaos Demons are really interesting, but they're kind of just there. Aside from some like key demon characters, they're just kind of faceless, like personality-less monsters. But they do have some fun characters, like Scarbrand, Kairos Fateweaver, Rotigus, and that's kind of it. But the big thing that holds them down is they share a slot with Slaanesh, which brings them down, because Slaanesh is the worst Chaos God. All right, and Dark Eldar, F tier. But this one I'm even less like willing to inch. I genuinely don't see anything to like about the Dark Eldar. I don't like their characters. I don't like their aesthetic. Really not into them. I don't understand it. Their rules are kind of interesting on tabletop. I got my ass beat by Dark Eldar a few times in some games. Their rules seem fun, but other than that, I think they're one of the factions I genuinely can't see anything to like. All right, and Gene Stealers. I'm tossing them into C tier. They're all right. I am not blown away by Gene Stealers. I think they're kind of just there, as I don't think they ever steal the spotlight, in my opinion. They don't have any characters that I can really point at as like a prominent Gene Stealer character. They're kind of just there to be villains. I have heard the book A Day of Ascension is really good, but yeah, they're there. They're present in a lot of books I adore as just villains that get shot down and killed in the end, but you know, they just kind of exist. And next up we got Harlequins. And I guess I'm going to be a little just lenient for the elves. They're going into D tier. As they have some stuff that I think is cooler than the general rest of the Eldar. I think their way of combating Slaanesh is really interesting because it's the only one that works. I like Kagarak. I think he's kind of fun. And I mean, even then, it's working so well, like a lot of Eldar hopping ship to go become a Harlequin. I got like two issues. The first is I think they're portrayed as a little too strong, as people keep saying that like, oh, they beat some Custodians in combat, which obviously isn't true, because I don't think anyone could beat the Custodians in combat, which might just be an issue on lore stuff, you know? And then second, like, come on, let Ahriman into the Black Library. Just let him root around a little bit, just let him in there. Just like give him 10 minutes just to root around. It's kind of mean that you're not. All right, and Imperial Guard are going into A tier. And Imperial Guard are subject to some of the genuinely best stories and characters 40k has to offer. And a lot of that is just because the author Dan Abnett exists. So they kind of got a leg up in that front. However, they're kind of brought down a bit because, I mean, at the end of the day, they're just guys that makes them interesting and sometimes a little boring, depending on the writer. And as well, I really don't like their rules because they're a Horde army, and I don't like Horde armies. Also, Jesus Christ Guard players, find some way to make your shooting phase take just less than an hour, please. I want to get to my melee phase. And Knights are going into D tier. They're mechs, and I hate mechs, but they're not chaos, so they're worse. Necrons are another S+. I fucking love these spooky robots. They got some phenomenal characters. Imhotep, the Silent King, Trazyn, Nemesis Zandrak. I can go on. Some really good books, like Infinite Divine is definitely like my favorite 40k book ever. And they're great. I own some models. I haven't done a lot with them, admittedly, because I kind of got distracted by two other armies that I'm playing. I think they're neat. If I had to start a Xenos army, because I currently don't have one, I would definitely go right into Necrons. They're super cool, great lore, also in the Mechanicus game, and they're really fun in that. So I don't see anything to hate about the Necrons, to be honest. I don't get people who say they're lame. Orcs are going to be S tier. As like, what's not to like about the Orcs? They're really fun. They're super goofy. They're some of the only like comic relief 40k has. I have a whole video going in on why I like them so much. A lot of their characters are fun. They have really goofy exploits. The whole thing with their Wa, like psychic power of belief, is stupidly fun. There's a reason why Orcs are like one of the first instances of, hey, have you heard about 40k? There's this race called the Orcs, and they're like this. Like, it's a fun introduction to 40k. I think it's one of their stronger suits. I personally like some of the other Xenos factions more, but the Orcs are fucking up there. They're great. And the Sisters of Battle are going in automatically S+. Definitely not because I played this faction, but I fucking love them. They're so much fun. They have great stories, also great characters. I'm really proud of my Sisters video, despite how kind of not great it's done. And that goes into really in depth of why I think they're so fun. That, and I think they're definitely a great portrayal of how awful the Imperium can be, because Jesus Christ, they're ruthless with their like religious dogma. And also, if you haven't done this yet, please listen to Our Martyred Lady. That audio drama is fucking top tier. It's so good. It all, like, I read about the sisters, read some of their stuff, listened to that audio drama, and I was like, oh, I'm starting an army now. Like, if anything would, it's that audio drama. I mean, even then too, like going back to the games as I do, Sister DLC keeps popping up and it makes me want to play these games I thought were okay. Like Battle Sector got a Sisters DLC, I'm now considering playing it. Or Inquisitor Martyr, you can now play as a Sister of Battle, like significantly more fun. Now, this one's not to play into any dogpiling because they do get a really like bad rep online, it's kind of gross, but I am putting the Tau in F tier. Now, I can say this, when I read about the Tau initially, I was like, I don't like these guys. I'm a day one hater. So, the Tau have a lot of reasons why I don't like them. I'm not a fan of their aesthetic, I think it's kind of boring. I really don't like that they're just shooting, as I think a lot of the fun in 40k comes from like the melee stuff and how like upfront brutal can get, and just sniping a guy from 20 miles away with a railgun is just kind of boring. Also mechs, because ew, I don't like robots. They're lame. There's a lot more reasons that I'm not going to go into because Tau do get a bad rep. And I am obligated to say a promise to a roommate of mine who plays Tau and really likes them. Commander Farsight's kind of cool. He's based. He gets a little bit of points there. If I had to rank them separately, he's probably like a C or something. However, this same roommate willingly purchased a Tau Manta. So take his, request with a grain of salt. Next up, we got the Tyranids, which I'm throwing into S tier. I love these giant bugs. I think if you dig into my channel deep enough, you can tell that I'm a giant Starship Troopers fan, and that's what the Tyranids are. They're super fun. Their units are properly horrific, like the fact that their guns they don't shoot bullets, they shoot tiny little bugs that burrow into you and eat you. Or that one spell I covered in my Psyker video, where they convert parts of your brain matter into tiny Tyranids that then burrow out of your skull. They're full of stuff like that. The hive mind is super fascinating. They're also a really cool form of hive mind in sci-fi, one we don't see a lot of. I made 2 videos on that front on Nids. Go watch them. I love them. There's a raw wave of bugs. They don't have anything complicated because they don't really need it. They don't really need all these fancy characters and the like. And then lastly, we got the Leagues of Votann. I'm tossing them in B tier, though a lot of that is because we just don't have a lot to work off when it comes to the Votann. We just have the Codex currently, and like the lore we got there is cool. Like I like the whole concept of like they have their AI gods that are quickly running out of RAM and they need to go find more. I like dwarves. I love them in Warhammer Fantasy because like I don't know a lot about fantasy, but I like the dwarves, and I like Gottfried Gurnison. And he's a dwarf, so, space dwarves are pretty cool. But right now, that's what carries it for me. I just like dwarves. I like how they act in 40k. I think they fit in really well. It's just we need to wait and see with some books, and when we have more than one named character, because we kind of just have one guy. So we'll see if this ranking changes. This is like the only one that I think is subject to go like up or down. But yeah, that's all the factions in 40k with their canonical rankings. If you disagree with me, you're wrong.